Good morning, Edmonton. It is February 13th. Yes, it is one day before the retail Hallmark holiday. And we are already in the middle of February. That's something that's more interesting to me. The fact that it is now the middle of February. We haven't had much of a winter. And honestly, our real estate market is kind of seeing the benefits of it all. So I wanted to talk to you today about what is going on, of course, in our real estate market. And if you have questions, if you're tuning in and you're watching live, please make sure to comment, and I'd be happy to share your comments, your questions that you may have about our Edmonton real estate market. I will be here for the next, let's say, 45 minutes. We are going to try something a little bit longer than last time. And so if you're watching this from the very beginning, this is going to be a bit of a show commentary on what is going on, what's happening in Edmonton's real estate market. Why is it doing what it's doing? Is the interest rates affecting our real estate market? Are the sales affecting? What's happening in our neighboring city in Calgary? How's that impacting our market? So let's first talk about what's actually happened in the last 7 days. And then after I go through the statistics, we'll go through some commentary. So currently there are 1,755 listings. Now, if you've been watching for the last few weeks, we have been dropping every single week. I don't know if you noticed this, but it's a slight increase. So that is good news in terms of a little bit more choices for buyers. It's nothing to be scared about as sellers because it's not a whole lot that has come up. If you look in the surrounding areas like St. Albert Sherwood Park, Spruce, and Beaumont, those haven't changed a whole lot. Now, Spruce Grove's gone up by 11, but everyone else has not gone up by a whole lot of inventory, which is listings. This also means it doesn't mean new listings have come on the market. It just means what's actually existing right now as we speak. So there would have been listings, sales, and if there's less, it means that there was less listings that came new than there were sales. But in this week, there were actually less sales than there were new listings. Now, it doesn't mean the sales are dropping. It just means more listings are coming on the market. And it is the middle of February, which is quite normal for the market to start to pick up in terms of people putting their home on the market. Because if you buy a house today, a regular 30-day possession, 60 days is actually quite normal. You'll see now because people don't have a house that they're moving into. So if someone owns the house and they put the house on the market today, conditions, if you put an offer in today, conditions would be lifted in, let's say, 2 weeks. And we are starting to see tighter timelines because we're competing against other offers. So maybe 1 or 10 days, it puts you in at like Feb 23rd or Feb 28th to remove conditions. Then after that, you are looking at 30 days from that's end of March, and 60 days is end of April. So you end up by moving in for end of April, which most people are actually okay with moving for April or May. So a lot more people are starting to think that way and start to put their house on the market. We will see, in my assumption, more listings coming for the month of March. March is going to be a much heavier time to list. That's always been how it's been regardless of the market. And we've always seen March be a little bit busier than the April, May. Those are still pretty consistent. I'd say this year, though, we've seen so much more activity in January and February that March, I suspect, will have even more listings. Now, if you take a look at the pending sales, the number is a little bit lower than the number from last week. Now, this means nothing in terms of, oh no, the market's shifting. This is only 1 week perspective. If you want to look at the whole month's perspective, we just put out a video on Friday about what happened in January. So every Tuesday when I go week to week, it's a little small weekly tidbit, but you want to also take a look at the whole month in review so that you can see what actually happened overall. Now, this week, we supposedly dropped 30 some almost pending sales. But you have to keep in mind too, there aren't a whole lot of properties for people to buy. And so what's happening is they're either going to the new build market, which is what I've helped some clients do, or they're still waiting to find a house. So it doesn't mean the demand isn't there, because people usually look at pending sales to see what's the demand. How is the market doing in terms of number of sales? You cannot gauge it just on the numbers. So that's why it's really important when you work with somebody who is a realtor, do they do this full time? And if they do it full time, how much are they practicing? Because if they're not practicing all the time, they're not going to see what is actually happening beyond the actual numbers. Because anyone can anyone could open up the computer and look up the numbers of what's pending and sold. But what does that actually mean in combination with what's happening in the real estate market? What does that translate to? What does it look like from the years prior? And what does it mean today? Because a pending sale today is different than what it was 5 years ago. So do you know why that is? If you take a look at the surrounding areas, again, if you're tuning in from Ontario or BC, why do we look at St. Albert, Sherwood Park, Spruce Grove, and Beaumont? Because they're pretty much Edmonton. They're only 15 minutes away from the city, and not even away from the city. If you're driving to St. Albert, you can't even tell you've left the city. Sherwood Park has a little bit of that, and Spruce, but it's literally a 10-minute highway drive, and then all of a sudden you're in the suburb. In St. Albert, you don't even notice it because it's pretty much really close, like within minutes of Edmonton. Beaumont's starting to get like that too. That is why we cover those other areas. Now, if you take a look at the sold in the last 7 days, these are properties that had conditions on it and they removed it, or they went unconditional. We are starting to see more of that now. We are starting to see unconditional deals because of the multiple offer market we're starting to see. It's becoming more common to see multiple offers because why do we see people putting so many offers in? Well, because there's not that many houses for sale. So you've got, let's say, 10 people wanting to buy this one house. Probably 3 of them are at least going to write an offer. Now, in the situation of what we had prior, we've seen over 60 some showings and 6 come out, 11 showings and 30 showings and 11 offers come out. So there's not a method to it, but I will tell you, the more showings you've got, the more likely chances you're going to get multiple offers. Now, multiple offers doesn't necessarily mean you have to pay $50,000 to $100,000 over market. When I hear about this in other provinces, it kind of shocks me. We have not seen that in Edmonton. I don't suspect we would see it unless someone from the other province decides that they're wanting to do this. Now, it's not necessary because you can still win multiple offers without being at 50K over. And that's being said in general. If somebody priced the house really low, you might see that. But what we're seeing is market valued priced homes are still selling within their range. It's not anything too crazy. And sellers are looking for clean deals. And clean deals means we don't have a whole bunch of laundry list items in addition to the price and the date. We are filming a video about multiple offers and how you can win them and what they look like here in Edmonton versus what they look like in other provinces. So if you take a look at last year, this year to last year, this number is lower than it was last year. Now, I think in the weeks to come, our numbers should be more because our market last year wasn't that strong. Now, that being said, this is spring market. Okay, like March to May is spring market, so even February. So these numbers might not be too crazy. However, based on everyone's speculation about where the market's going and the temperature in which we're in right now, I wouldn't be surprised if we start to pick up and then the numbers week to week start to increase over last year. If you take a look at St. Albert, it is more. Sherwood Park is not the same. Spruce Grove is a little less and Beaumont less. So again, this is 1 week tidbit, not the entire month's worth. And I do think that if you take a look at the last month, if you take a look at our stats video I just put out, in January, we are up a lot. We're up like 45%, I believe, in number of sales. So it is definitely picking up in our real estate market. These numbers here are all single family home numbers. If I was doing condos, which I don't because I don't specialize them, condo market has actually picked up a lot. They were suspecting it was going to pick up last year and it didn't. And then this year, they may be 1 year delayed. So what is happening in Edmonton's real estate market with what's happening and what's multiple offer happening? Well, when you look at the number of listings that are for sale, where do buyers go if they can't find a property? They're either going to hold and just sit there and wait and wait and wait. Now, buyers, if you're watching this and you don't have an agent, by the time you see a new listing pop up, have you experienced now when you call to look at it, it's already pending or sold? Is that something you're experiencing? This is something that people experienced in 2021 and the first half of 2022. When the market moves quickly, by the time something comes up on the market, it is going to be likely pending or sold. Now, there's a new rule right now that you cannot market a property until it's 3 days from list. So a few years ago, you could have marketed as an agent 1, 2 weeks before, 3 weeks before that you've got a property coming and there's a lot of interest being generated. So by the time it does come on the market, it's either pending or sold because of all that. But this time, realtors aren't allowed to do that until 3 days before. And there's a lot of people who are working with agents. And as agents, we have the ability to save searches. And the minute the search is saved, the minute a realtor says live for the listing, it hits our inboxes first before it hits the other websites. Why is that? It's not on purpose. It's just the distribution, right? Like when you think about website distribution, it takes a while for things to kind of get to where it goes. Now, I'll give you another tip as buyers. If you are looking at more than one website, did you know that the websites that you're looking at are all pulling from the same resource? So when you find a house on one website and not on the other, it's not because you found a secret website that now has properties that you never thought you could find, or hey, you found it before your realtor found it. Very likely chances that is already a house that is pending, and that website is allowing to view properties that are pending. So for whatever reason, it's not showing as pending, it's showing as available. And you're like, look, I found one. And usually it's pending. I would say 99% of the chance it's pending or it's expired. Like it usually falls off after it's expired. So tip of the day, when you're looking at 6 different websites, 10 different websites, you might be able to save yourself a headache when you realize that you find the actual website that shows you the proper one, so you don't have to be looking at all those websites. It's exhausting. Plus, an agent, that's our job. Our job full time is to look for properties for you and to find a house for you. And we will send it to you knowing that you have these criteria. Now, if you have criteria that is changing, you're best to tell your realtor, here's my must-haves, and here are my things I'm willing to compromise. Now, if that changes while you're kind of waiting and you're kind of panicking, thinking, oh, maybe I can't have those specific requirements as must-haves, I'm going to move those to nice to have. You need to update your realtor so they can have the proper update search, right? So it is still possible to find properties. Clients of mine who wanted to buy resale and not new build, because we couldn't find anything, we did look at new just to be open. And then there was a lot of options. The builders still had deals happening. They still had incentives happening, and they had options. Now, this being said, it's the middle of February. We have seen one increase already in the pricing. Most builders have gone up about $10,000. So if you bought a new build home a month or earlier from now, you probably already made $10,000 worth of equity from the builder's perspective because they have increased all their prices. I am also very familiar that they are going to do this again. Now, this was a guess last week from one of my sales reps saying that they're suspecting to see like 3 to 4 increases this spring. My guess, the heavier the demand is, the more they're going to increase the prices. So in the world of getting a deal for a build, you need to move swiftly and quickly. Now, what does that even mean? Does that mean to just find something and write an offer and that's it? No, I'm still saying you need to do your homework. You still need to do your research. But when you work with a professional agent, we're able to actually tell you what is going on in the market, give you educated information about what's comparable and what is a good deal and what you can find for what you're looking for so that you can make that decision quickly because you've already overturned a whole bunch of options without actually needing to physically go through the property because you don't need to see 100 houses to find the house. That's something I think is a misconception. If you are working with someone who knows the inventory of not just resale, but also new build, so knows all of the inventory, then you know you've turned every stone. And then this is what you're comfortable with. And these are the ones that are left. Now, if you are buying in a market that's not hectic like this, you're still going to have that same criteria, that same narrowing down. So just take that stress off of you to realize, yes, you're buying in a stressful market. It doesn't have to be stressful. It doesn't need to be an impulse buy. You don't have to feel pressured. I always want to ask the question, if you feel pressured in the real estate market, what's making you feel pressured? Is it the fact that you feel like everything around you is going up in multiples? Okay, I know that feels stressful, but the reality is if that's the market, if you're not ready for that, then you're going to have to bow out of that market and wait until the market has slowed down. Now, the market will slow down. It's not going to keep up at this pace forever, but the prices are going up as that happens. And so when the market normalizes, it's not going to come back down. If every time we look at the peak from 2021 to 2022, from 2007 and that peak from 2007 to 2009. Every time there's been a peak, it's never come down below. So that is something good for facts that you need to understand. As you buy in the climb, no one wants to buy at the top of the climb because they know it's going to adjust. Now, it's not going to adjust all the way back down to here. It's going to adjust back down to here. So you might have paid a little bit more here, but don't forget, if you're buying a house that has long-term equity and you're not buying a house that backs the main road or has some weird deficiency in it, your equity will grow back. So that's another tip. Don't buy a house with thing that wouldn't normally sell in a normal market. So homes that back on a road are now seeing multiple offers. I personally would never advise my client to buy a house in that market because you're overpaying for a house that may not gain the equity back. Now, if you're in a cul-de-sac in a prime location, yeah, you're going to overpay for that house because of the multiple offer market, but you'll be able to make it back. You have higher chances of making that equity back versus when you're buying a house that has a major deficiency that cannot be changed. You cannot physically change the location of your property. So make sure location is at the top of your criteria, and that's going to indicate the pulse and the temperature of the multiple offer market. Now, in Edmonton, there are pockets in Edmonton that always see multiple offers because so many people want to move into these neighborhoods. For example, the neighborhoods in River Valley. Okay, so you've got Oliskew, Westridge, Parkview, Crestwood, that's the West End areas. You've got Strathern, you've got Bonnie Doon, you've got all these areas that are always, that tend to always see multiple offers anyways, but you're seeing more of that activity now. Also, you're seeing more activity in the fully finished move-in ready homes. So if you're watching this as a seller and you're wondering, when is a good time to sell? How do I jump in here? Do I do this now, or do I wait till I get the peak? Now, what you're going to do is you can control the ability to maximize your dollar wherever you end up being. I always say it's safer to do it sooner than later because you don't know when the market's going to shift. So what I always recommend is, yes, you can throw your house up on the market. You can put it up on your own. You don't need a realtor. You don't need a realtor maybe that does all the services. Because why? It's going to sell fast anyways. Why? You may be leaving money on the table. So maybe just ask yourself, am I doing everything I possibly can? If the buyer is wanting, the majority of buyers are wanting a move-in ready home, is it worth it for me to do a fresh coat of paint? Because I've lived in here for 5 to 10 years and it doesn't look as fresh anymore. Is it worth it to do some staging? I always say yes. That's why we have a stager and we do finishing touches around the home. I don't want to leave any money on the table. And so as a seller, please take the time to take a look at what money you can make if you took the time, and what money is it that you would leave on the table. Because if you do take the time and the money, guess what? It might be a bit of a headache for a little bit of time, but which is your hard? Choose your hard. You can either have it hard in terms of getting it ready, or you can have it hard if you realize, oh, I could have made so much more money had I actually done something. Because you're like, hey, that's the same house as mine, but it sold for so much more. Well, if your house doesn't show as good as the next person, people are willing to pay a certain amount. And don't forget too, because there's not very much to compare to, yeah, that's why you're getting so much activity. And in a market where you have lots of competition, you're doing this to stand out. In this market, you're doing this to stand out because you're going to let people know you don't have to do more work, so they're willing to pay that much more. Now, if you're looking for a deal in the market, you are going to be looking at homes that aren't move-in ready. So as a seller, you need to be prepared that a house that's not staged, not prepared properly, is probably going to sit on the market a bit longer if you don't have the price proper. You can still sell that house at a quick rate as long as the pricing is proper. We are still seeing overpriced homes on the real estate market. I believe if all the homes in Edmonton were priced properly, we would have nothing. In Calgary, in our down south, they have even less properties available for sale than we do. Now, that being said, we have more options between the $300,000 to $500,000 for single family homes. In Calgary, good luck to find that kind of same home in Calgary. The same home, someone was telling me, one of the agents was telling me that he was in a multiple offer situation with a townhouse attached. So these are attached townhouses. And those types of properties here in Edmonton are maybe the mid 3s to high 3s, maybe low 4s. I don't know if I've seen the mid 4s yet. It was listed at $710,000 and they had multiple offer. That is insane for a townhouse. That's Calgary. So you can understand why more people are inclined now to come to Edmonton because yes, the interest rates are higher than they were a few years ago, but the actual price of the home, if it's 370 versus 710 for the same property, which one would you choose if the city didn't matter? Both cities are in Alberta and they're both driving distance. One's closer to the mountains than the other. But if you have no family here and no friends here and you're starting from scratch and you're trying to make you're trying to make a place for your family and provide them with the opportunity to maybe do some extracurricular with some dance class, hockey, whatever the case may be, obviously you have more money in your pocket if you live in Edmonton for single family homes for sure. Their average price that they sell over there is, I'd say their influx is about 600 to 800,000 is like the bulk of their sales, 6 to 8. Ours is 3 to 5. Now, 5 to 6 is a very common for new builds. If you're looking for a new build property, front attached garage, you need to understand you're going to be paying in the 5s, probably more likely the 6s if you're looking for a 2,000 square foot home. And there are lots of 0 lot lines, which are on the 5s, lower 5s price point. If you want no 0 and bigger houses, you're looking at the lower 6s. So if you thought that a budget of 500,000 was a healthy budget, yeah, that's $500,000. I definitely think it's a healthy budget, but you have to be realistic about what you can purchase because not necessarily are you going to get the 3,000 square foot home for 500,000. Not going to happen. Now, if you spend $500,000 in the resale market, in the older end of the market, you will find more options. But keep in mind, you have to remember you're going to have to put in potentially new roof, furnace, hot water tank. There's costs that are going to be associated with buying resale or new. Resale is going to also have some really good perks. So as a seller, you have already done the landscaping, the fencing, the all that stuff and the maintenance. And if you've maintained your house and you've kept your water tank up to date, you just replaced it. Those are good things. Permits are good things. These are all selling features for the buyers because they're seeing, hey, this house has actually been taken care of and looks like new, but has the price tag that's not a new price tag. And so then they're willing to be able to spend that money on your house. So if you're looking to buy, take a look at the new home market, and realtors do and can help you. I know I am very familiar with the builder market. And so we always go through that as options when you do a buyer consult, because why would we not look at all the options that you have? And then for the resale market, what neighborhoods are you looking at? Now, zone 17, 18, 19. What are zones? Zones are how realtors used to classify areas of homes, areas of neighborhoods. And I don't know all the names off by heart in zone 17, 18, 19, but I do know what's in there. So I will look at my map on the wall here. And we have in zone 17 areas like Hazeldean, Ritchie, Argyle. And zone 18, some neighborhoods would be Bonnie Doon, Idlewild. Zone 19 has Forest Heights. So you can see those are some of the areas. These are neighborhoods that are all renovated bungalows. They've got infill, those 2-story infills. If you're looking for a specific type of home in Edmonton, and that's more important to you than the location and a certain price point, you're going to have to realize that some areas don't have what you're looking for. So you could wait for a really long time and it'll never happen. So for example, if you're looking for a front attached double garage in the front and you're looking for it to be new, it's not impossible to find it in the inside of the city, but the price tags can be really high because those are homes that are going to be built on expensive land, because these are neighborhoods or mature areas that have already been developed. So you're paying a lot more money for that land to build that house compared to the new suburbs where the land, of course, the price is going up, but it's nowhere near as expensive as in the city. Now, in the city, when you look at resale, some of the areas that are more expensive than others are going to be Southwest is one of the more prime things, and anything River Valley. If you look at the new builds, so new builds are all located usually on the outskirts of the Anthony Henday. Those areas, interestingly enough, don't hold to the same criteria. So I say in general, Southeast is more affordable than the rest of Edmonton. but not when it comes to new build. How weird is that, right? In the new build world, there's a lot of expensive Southeast homes. So what does that mean if you buy a new build home in Southeast Edmonton? And the resale market, Southeast tends to sell for less than the rest of the city. Well, you can see there's a discrepancy in price. And eventually the new build that you live in becomes resale. So it becomes that property. So though you may be willing to pay more money for a new home, you have to make sure you understand the scope in which you're taking it in, because eventually it will be a resale home, and resale homes value. You do the math. You might not keep that value, and it might take you longer because you bought actually over what the resale market was. And now it takes time to grow. And you're also competing with the other new builds. So you can imagine someone gets a warranty, they get everything new, no one's ever lived in it before, so they're willing to pay a little bit more. So if you're in those new neighborhoods, that's typically why you have a bit of a challenge when it comes to those sales. So that Southeast Edmonton is a little bit tricky because you could buy that same price point home in Southwest, West, North. They're all very similar price points. There's not a huge difference between them. They're quite similar when you're buying it from the builder. Now, where are some areas, and I don't know if you know this, but in Edmonton, our city is sprawling big time. Like we have major urban sprawl. And in South, they've taken back some of that land. So like I was telling you earlier, I talk about other areas because they're getting so close to Edmonton. Let me share a screen with you so you can see the map of Edmonton, because I'll show you how the sprawl is definitely having, Edmonton is so close together. So let me just share my screen. So let's take a look at the city of Edmonton map. So if you take a look at the map here, what I'm talking about, okay, so this is Beaumont, okay, and that's Edmonton. So you think, oh, there's a highway here. There's like, it's not totally in Edmonton. Well, look closer. As I zoom in, the Orchards is really darn close to Beaumont. And I'll tell you also something. The new neighborhood that Le Rev, that is with Sterling, is right here. It's like right above, even though it's considered Beaumont, but the map itself hasn't adjusted itself. It's right here. So you can kind of see how close they're getting, and they are developing here. See, this is a new area, Matson. I didn't even know what this was. So there are new neighborhoods popping up everywhere when it comes to new build, and you can see how close. If Matson goes to here, and this is here, there's no more highway driving really anymore. If you take a look at St. Albert, it's very similar. So St. Albert is a surrounding suburb as well. So just taking a Henday here. So right here is St. Albert. This is Highway 216. This is Edmonton. You can see it's right there. That's St. Albert right there. So you live in Aikinsdale, you live in Heritage Lakes, you're right there. You're closer there than like Cumberland. Cumberland's technically in Edmonton, obviously, but you take a look at how close this is. These are so close together. That's why you look at St. Albert. Now, you can also get into St. Albert from this road. This is Ray Gibbon Drive. Starling is a neighborhood in Edmonton, and look how close it is to Heritage Lakes. Like this is all St. Albert. And St. Albert's new neighborhoods, because they're building as well. You've got some new neighborhoods over in this area. I think that's the one that's called the Chirot. And then you've got Jensen Lakes, which are they even on the map yet? Jensen Lakes is similar to Summerside. So it's the only lake community in Edmonton is Summerside. And then Jensen Lakes is the community in St. Albert, in the north side of St. Albert. And they haven't even labeled it yet. So Jensen Lakes, and then you've also got Nouveau, which is right beside Jensen Lakes. Let me see if I can find it on here. Yeah, so they just haven't labeled the whole area yet. So this is Jensen Lakes, this gray area, and Nouveau is also in this area. St. Albert has schools everywhere in every community. It's a very, very children family friendly. They are a very French-speaking community, and actually, so it was Beaumont, but St. Albert, I think, is more French-speaking now than it is. Now, when you're looking in St. Albert, there's all the new stuff, but there's also the older homes. Now, remember I told you in Edmonton, depending on what house you want, that's what you're going to get. In St. Albert, same thing. So this area is in the 90s. Okay, there's like early 2000s, 90s. There's older homes in the central part here, and certain areas like the 90s, you have to be careful of poly B. Now, poly B is a home that has just that gray plumbing line. And in the States, it's more prone because of chlorine being gone through the water. Like we don't have a whole high level of chlorine, but chlorine's at what wears that poly B down. So you'll see homes in Edmonton and in St. Albert with poly B, not the end of the world, but some home insurance companies would want you to believe it's the end of the world. And so there are companies that will insure them and some that won't, more that won't than will. And it all depends. So you don't need to be totally frightful of it. You just have to understand what you're getting yourself into. And a proper home inspection will tell you, they'll bring it up, but you'll also be able to know if it's been worn or leaking or all that kind of stuff. You're going to have leaks in regular pipes too. It's just that they are more known to like disintegrate from the inside because of the chlorine flow. Now, if you take a look at these other areas, now don't forget too, St. Albert has a train chalk. Most of St. Albert isn't bothered by it, but I'll tell you, there's a train track right here, I believe. Here it is. So right by Lacombe Lake Dog Park, there's a train track that is here. It runs through, there's a new neighborhood here called Riverside. Again, that's not labeled on the map as well. It's kind of weird. But there's houses here. And there's a train track. Now, in all of St. Albert, you'll hear it, but some people are more bothered than others. I would say Lacombe Park, because being older, the value doesn't keep as much as, for example, Riverside, because it's brand new. And so people don't seem to mind it as much because they're living in a newer home. And the price point, the land wise here, is more affordable, for example, than way up here, where it is very expensive. You can buy a duplex, last I checked, in Jensen for like $600,000. So it is quite a bit more expensive to have that there. We're going to have some video about that neighborhood because I'd love to see the lake in full action. Last summer, it wasn't completely done yet. But that's St. Albert area, but you can see why it's so close. Look at Spruce Grove. So Spruce Grove is a bit further because you have to drive through Atchison. This is all industrial, so no one's going to live there. But right here is Highway 16. You can also get there from 16A. It's not that far. This neighborhood has become very popular because of how affordable it is. And some people ask me about Stony Plain because it's even further and it's even more affordable. My recommendation is to stay in Spruce Grove because it's just that much closer to the city. Living right here, actually, right here, there's a new neighborhood, not Lakewood, but right here. There's new neighborhoods right here, like Easton. They are so close to the city. It's about 10-minute drive from city edge to city edge. So it's not that far away. And you can see the mall's right here. So Sherwood Park, you see how close it is as well too. Like I said, those surrounding areas can be more affordable. Sherwood Park and St. Albert, however, let's talk about them a little bit. We talk about them every week, but you can see that the number of listings they have. So for example, right now they've got 91 options and St. Albert has 143. They've always been really hot. They've always been strong markets, I should say that. So when our market in the city has fallen and doesn't sell as much, St. Albert and Sherwood Park always seem to keep consistent. I don't believe Sherwood Park ever saw as big of a slump as we did, just because the market, there's not a whole lot of options. Sherwood Park also, I heard this from a builder that said that they can't actually do triple car garages for the newer places anymore in Sherwood Park, not Strathcona County. Strathcona County is the acreage areas outside. And they have rules, like there's no legal suites allowed in Sherwood Park because they want to keep the population down in Sherwood Park. So it's becoming more, I would say, I don't want to say elitist, but it kind of, that's the word that comes to my mind. They want to be more exclusive. I guess that's the word. And if you look in Calgary, for example, as an example, there are neighborhoods in Calgary that are very much like that because they don't have the mixture of homes as much as we do. In Edmonton, the way it's structured, you will see townhouses and duplexes and front attached garages all in the same area, kind of interspersed. Whereas in Calgary, if you want to find a space that's just single family homes, it's more common. In Edmonton, we do have some of those areas. Some of those older areas, like in West Edmonton, will have them, but they're more expensive. So if you take a look at, for example, this area here, there are condos there, but they're not as obtrusive. And then, for example, in Collingwood, they have a lot of condos and a lot of rentals. So depending on that, and of course, the less dense it is, then the higher the price point of the homes go. So I see that and observe that with Sherwood Park. St. Albert, to my understanding, doesn't have the same regulations about the legal suites as Sherwood Park. So you have some options there. But Sherwood Park and St. Albert, if you're looking for more affordable options, isn't necessarily the places you're going to go. Now, that being said, there are more options with the new builds in those areas sometimes compared to the resale market. So it's all dependent on where you want to live. It's all dependent on where you are working. Are you remote? Do you have to go downtown? Some of these areas are a pain in the butt. Now, if you're coming from Toronto or BC, this is probably nothing. For you to drive from Beaumont to downtown, you're like, this is nothing. I've had people say to me, oh, just give me a whole span of this whole area. I'm fine to drive from Josephsburg. I don't even know what that is. I'm not going to sell you a house in Josephsburg. These are, they're probably going to be really, really affordable to the point where you're like, wow, I can just pay cash for that. I don't need to worry about it. You're not going to have the same amenities. I'm going to sneeze. Excuse me. You're not going to have the same amenities. It's that much further. I have seen people move. Fort Saskatchewan has amenities. Tip for you, if you want a place that can accommodate your large truck, you will fit in Fort Saskatchewan. Their garages are huge over there. But all these little cities little towns out here are just what they are. They're towns. They're not actually suburbs like you would call St. Albert and Sherwood Park and Spruce and Beaumont. They're outside. So when you look at that from the perspective of being from out of province, you have to understand, keep within what areas I'm telling you. Sure, these areas are more affordable, but I don't know those markets, but I do know this much. Their equity doesn't gain as much over time as the ones inside of these main amenities here. So when you are looking at the city, you do want to restrict it. Location is king. You don't want to just go all of Edmonton, 30 minutes from outside of Edmonton, inside of Edmonton. That's a huge span. You need to narrow that down, and you need to figure out, okay, I want Edmonton, but like what neighborhoods in Edmonton make the most sense for our family? If you're looking for super family friendly neighborhood, a lot of people go to St. Albert. Let's say you want to have hockey as a primary thing. St. Albert, Sherwood Park are known for that. Edmonton, still, yes, there are people who play hockey and kids who play hockey in Edmonton too. So there's a lot of different things that you need to consider. You need to consider the schools, the areas, the walkability. Edmonton is not very walkable compared to our big cities like Toronto and Vancouver. So that's something you have to consider is, do I need a vehicle? You probably do. So those are all things that you might want to take a look at as we talk about what's happening in our real estate market. Make sure you let me know any questions that you might have. You can go on and pop on Instagram as well and let me know. Next week, when I talk about the current active listings, I'm very intrigued. So take a look at these numbers again. I am intrigued to see the 1755 go up to 1800, but I would suspect the sold number or pending sale number, the 167, to go over 200. I actually thought that number was going to go over 200 because we're seeing such a buildup of people wanting to buy. There's not going to be an announcement, I don't believe, for the interest rate increases until March. So people are kind of working within that space as well. We're seeing people want to have and move into houses before the interest rate changes, but I don't suspect things are going to go up. People think it's either going to stay flatlined or come down a little bit. And if you're looking to renew your mortgage, I believe you need to talk to a mortgage broker for one. But I believe that the interest rates are going to continue to drop. So just talk to your broker about what the best strategy is to make sure you get the best interest rate deal. Do you lock in for 3 years or 2 years or 5? Like what makes the most sense? Your family might be changing as well too, right? So you want to take a look at what makes the most sense for my family. And in our video next week, I'll probably talk about how do you win in multiple offers because it'll just be coming off of filming from multiple offer market. So let us know if you have questions. Thanks so much for tuning in today.